Before we get started with this episode, we have a major favor to ask you.
If you could subscribe, like, and comment, especially with somebody that you'd love to see on the show, we would really appreciate that, and it would be amazing.
This helps us more than you know. In fact, once we hit 1,000 subscribers, and that is our goal, we are going to choose 2 of you to come to our very first Shoreline Show meetup with our team and our past guest.
And if you want more of the Shoreline Show, you can get on us on all the major audio podcast platforms.
Now, let's get on to the next episode. Well, welcome to this week's episode of the Shoreline Show, and you have both of us today.
We are back.
We are back, and today we're talking about risk tolerance. What is your risk tolerance?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting subject that a lot of people don't talk about, especially on a personal level of their finances. Typically, they'll talk about it with their business, but not so much personally.
And I just know, you go in and you talk to your financial advisor and they are like, okay, well, let's set you up on this plan. And what is your risk tolerance? And usually that's the only time people really think about what's their risk tolerance in growing money.
I definitely agree.
Or wealth. But I think that we should really talk about it on more of a level of our everyday lives. What are we willing to risk?
100%. Are you going to risk comfortable life for the chance of earning money? Or is it going to be one of those things where you are risking money to be comfortable? Or is it you're building a life that you really want?
Right,
so are you taking money and essentially are you saying, hey, I'm going to save my money and I'm going to make sure I want to build wealth. So by the time I'm in my 60s, I have a retirement fund and I'm able to provide the things that I want. Or are you going to risk it all and live a life and hopefully end up, trying to...
What does that look like for most people?
Yeah. What does that look like?
And I think the conventional wisdom, the thing that I grew up with, and I know that this is taught in schools and this is just like a societal norm, is, we're taught that to be stable and to get a good education, go to college, get a job, and you work 40 hours a week at this job, or you might take on overtime work, kill yourself and work 60 hours a week.
Oh, yeah, you see it all the time, the old manufacturing.
And you have good benefits, and you get a paycheck every week, and that's, for most people, a very, very stable way to live out their life and to earn money and then put it into an IRA, and they ask you, what is your risk tolerance?
Yeah, how risky do you want to be with that IRA?
How risky do you want to be with it? And to me, I just never wanted, that stuff to me always felt like it wasn't stable. It was a false stable.
I would 100% agree with you on that. I think I come from a manufacturing, you guys know, manufacturing background, and in that manufacturing background, they would pay you enough money to where you couldn't go out and do anything wild and crazy and build a dream or be creative with it. Mm-hmm. But they didn't want to pay you too little where then you went looked for something else.
Right.
So they kept you in this happy medium space where you had just enough. Mm-hmm. And
you got a cost of living raise.
Yeah, you get a cost of living. I find it interesting. The funny thing I find it interesting with that is your programs from adolescence and school age to where it's the same thing with manufacturing where you go to work and every quarter you get a review.
Yeah. So in school, you have it's semesters or trimesters sometimes in school.
Yeah.
So, you have your first semester, and then halfway through your first semester, there's an exam.
Make sure you did it right. Yeah.
Make sure you're on track. And then you have your end of the semester exam. And then we start all over again for the second semester. So it's really like that 4
Yeah, and
quarters.
manufacturing for me was the same way.
Right.
Every quarter you would get your evaluation of how you did, and then they would grade you on essentially how you did, and that was based on what raise you got.
Right.
Which, so I think school is designed to bring you into the workforce and be contributing members of society.
Yes.
So
That sounds
distinguished.
so boring to me.
It does. I think some people are meant to do other things.
Yes.
I think it's great to do that if that's what you want to do. I think God calls people to do certain things. I think if you have an entrepreneur spirit like Shelly and I, you start to realize very quickly where that starts to eat at who you are.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, I would rather trade financial security for having a life, in that the risk you're taking is that it might not work out.
Exactly. Like I would rather bet on myself every minute of every day.
Right.
I'd rather bet all my money on me, that I'm going to be able to invest in businesses, properties, people,
Yourself.
myself,
Developing who you are as a person.
developing who I am as a person, so that all these things that I invest in, and I take money and invest in these things, because money is our currency that
Right.
we have. This is when you get that, you got to spend money to make money type of
Right.
thing. Okay, I would rather bet on myself every day than to go down the path of least resistance, where I get the education and I get the job and I make sure that I'm getting all the benefits that I need, and then I'm trading my time
For money.
for money. Because in that situation, I have to go to a 40-hour-a-week job and punch a clock and be there when they tell me I have to be there, and stay after and work extra hours if they tell me that they need people to stay and work overtime when I have other things planned for my life.
Right.
I know you had this.
Well, yeah, definitely. That was my mindset too. And I think it's because I think the difference is some people are comfortable with living and working and to create a life so when they go to retire, I think most people in that lifestyle, they're looking for retirement. They can't wait for retirement.
Yep.
I have no desire to ever retire.
I don't either.
And I think that's a little bit of the difference too. And I think it's because we're creating a lifestyle and not an end. There's not like an end goal
There's
for me.
no end goal for
I
me.
think about guys like the guy that, what was his name? The Colonel from KFC.
Yeah.
But he started that when he was 70. I can imagine there will be that day where I'm in my 70s. I'm still doing things because and taking risk and trying new things. And I think that's because it's a lifestyle that I'm looking for. So that means I enjoy trying things and doing things and making mistakes and doing all sorts of things and living a life that I choose to dictate what that is, instead of somebody else saying this is how you're gonna live or whatever.
Right.
Maybe
I think for me, that choosing to do that fills my soul.
I would agree with that for myself too. Yeah.
Right. Like I feel like if I would have chose the other way, if I would have chose to go on a different path, the path of least resistance, that it would have sucked the life out of me.
I don't think that's for every person. I would say that's the same
Right.
case for myself.
Right.
For sure, it would have restricted me from. I have no desire to end this world with a bunch of money, but doing nothing.
Right. And it's not even, for me, it's not even the money.
It has nothing to do with it.
It really has nothing to do with it. Obviously, like we have the ability to create the opportunity to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
But for me, what gets created and what the end amount is and all that doesn't even matter
It's
to
so
me.
much more.
It
Yeah.
is more about the journey on what I'm doing and how I feel full in my life doing that, and how I'm able to help other people
Yeah, it kind
get
of
to their goals and their dreams.
It reminds me of like a mindset of people that say, okay, like I've always visualized, it's funny because I've always pictured someday when I'm old, I'm like 90, I'm on my deathbed, and I'm in a room full of like 100 people, maybe more, who knows. And they've all done things. And it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with, I might see a missionary over here that I've been friends with for the last 50 years that they've gone to Africa. And they kind of, we had somebody on our podcast like that. And they've done so much wild and crazy stuff. And you might have somebody over here that has taken in orphans and has a nonprofit. They don't have a ton of money, but that nonprofit now is doing things. You might have some business owners, but it's like we've all lived life at the fullest capabilities and potential that we are called to do in our own right, whatever that may mean. But it has nothing to do with necessarily. It's actually the opposite. I think we're always, a lot of people are trying to chase this dollar.
Right.
But there's really never enough money, and what is the goal? So if I do save money, and this is the thing I talk about with my family all the time, I save money until I'm 65 or 63 and a half, and now I have 3 million, 4 million, 5 million bucks, whatever. And then I'm so frugal on how to spend that, then I give it away to my kids. And then they just inherit money and they just gave it to them, but they don't know what it's like to build it, to go through the pain and all this stuff. And I think that's actually the joyful part of it. And I see that where people I know, it's they end up not happy. It's no different how many people we know hit the lottery and are truly happy. They actually end up more depressed than they ever have been a lot of the time because they didn't have to go through the journey to get it. And I think that's the joyful part of it. It's helping people, and it's starting businesses. It's me and you starting this podcast right now. It's like, honestly, this podcast it's part of that, right? It's the journey. It's the fun part. It's meeting people. It's interacting with all you guys. That is the joyful part. Exactly.
And I think you touched on it a little bit when you were talking about the generation thing. So, like, I feel like I'm in the first generation of building.
Definitely.
Okay. And the reason I say that is because, and not that it's good or bad or anything like that, my family that I came from was more of the mindset of get the good job, get the education, have benefits, have that stability.
Right.
And to me, that's riskier than what I'm doing.
Oh, definitely.
Because, and the reason I say it's riskier is, let's say I go get a job someplace. I don't know if that company is going to shut down someday.
Oh, I 100% agree with that.
And so to me, that's riskier to do that. So, but what I'm leading into is the generational thing. I'm really the first generation that is taking bigger risks with building a company, the money that I earn, taking that and reinvesting it, investing in people, investing in businesses, investing in real estate, with the goal that those things will all pay off and there will be a reward for all that. And at some point in time, we're all going to die, right?
Yep.
And at some point in time, that money will be passed on to the second generation, depending on how you set up your trusts and wills and all that kind of stuff. I've heard of a lot of people that are very wealthy and when they die, none of their money goes to their kids.
No.
And I always thought, man, that is so rude.
Yeah.
You know? And now that I'm at this point in my life, I'm like, there's something to that.
Oh, big time.
You know, like I haven't decided like what is going to happen with any wealth that gets built. I do feel for myself, it would be important for me to feel like I'm giving something to my children. But to just grow wealth and grow wealth and grow wealth with the mindset that I'm growing all this wealth and I'm not going to spend a dime because I want to give it to my kids, I don't think that's right either.
No, I think it comes down to, you have to grow into being okay to being unstable. And then, because you have stability, right? That's most people. And the reason they want to be stability, but what grows a person is the instability. So if you automatically hand over money to the second generation, they have that stability, or they know they're going to get that stability, which automatically is going to kill their creativity. Not automatically, but most of the time. And the instability is what actually creates a person for who they are. It's the all in. It's like hey, I'm rolling the dice on what I do because it's my only option.
Right.
I think that's what develops a person, is saying, and I think that's why if you look at a lot of billionaires today, I wouldn't say majority of them are first generation. Then second generation comes in and they can maintain it. But they won't ever have to take...
Because I think the second generation, a lot of time, witnessed the first generation going through it. And so they have a pretty good grasp on it. But what happens when it gets to that third generation?
They have not seen it.
They haven't seen it.
No.
And that's what scares me about building a generational wealth. What's going to happen to that third generation?
I think the people that do it right is that I see some people that'll do it. They do it by wrapping it up in foundations, or they wrap them up in corporations that isn't given away. It's given to the people. But, I think that whoever that is, I think that is a good thing. And I think that's the way it should be, because then those kids have to work towards that goal,
Right. So stability versus instability is what we're really talking about here, and what that looks like. What does that look like for you, Rennie? When you were coming up and you were, I know you worked at
Royal. Yeah.
Royal. What was your thought process when you were working at Royal, and then, that stability in your life, and why did you choose to go down a different path?
It started with me by reading a lot of books. It's changing my mindset completely. I'm grateful for the unstable part of going through 2008, 2009, the recession, because you realize that stability wasn't stability. It was, so you're like, okay, wait, that's not stability. It goes back to reading books, changing your mindset, watching the people that you're around. It's listening to people that have done it, the first generation, like that's taken huge risk. It's doing those kind of things for me that really changed who I was, to say, hey, I'm going to go from a life of comfort to being unstable, but I'm very comfortable with it. It's one of those things where I wouldn't want it any other way. Stability scares me now, like a little bit, when it comes to, you just gotta, like I mentioned that before. I have no desire to just live in a box where I'm like, okay, I got everything figured out perfectly. It seems wrong to me a little bit. How about you?
Yeah, I think for myself, like, I think that the stability for me is not, it is exactly that. It's the instability that feels more stable to me. Because I think I have control over it. And when I say that, we never really have control over anything. Right? Never have any control over anything. However, I can control how I react to situations.
Right.
So when the market changes, and we're going through that right now, we're going through a huge change in real estate where the market is changing, I can't control the market.
Well, most companies look at it like Amazon. They started off as a book company, right? I believe.
And they shifted.
100%. Most companies do see these shifts in what they do, and they can control that. I want to say almost every company, even YouTube, I don't think started off as what it is. I think most of them didn't.
Right. And for me, the reason I feel like stability is really what most of the people would see as instability is that when there's those shifts and changes in the market, I have the opportunity or I have the ability to shift and make that situation into something that's going to grow.
Yeah, and it all starts with your mindset.
Absolutely.
You when things go bad, and I think that's what you learn as a person. And I think this is where you learn that you choose of how you react. Bad things are going to happen, but you're going to choose how you react to those situations. And you're either going to, I call it, put your big boy pants on and choose to change the situation you're in and bring the environment that you're looking to bring into it, or you're going to turn around and let it eat you up. And you get to choose that. And that's the beautiful part. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really cool is I know that our next episode is all going to be on mindset.
All mindset.
And so this whole thing talking about stability, instability, your risk tolerance, all of it boils down to what our mindset is.
What you think, what you do.
What we're thinking, what are we putting into our mind?
Right.
And I'm really excited to share that topic with you on our next episode. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for coming.
Before we get started,